to word, page to page, he stumbles upon each word in each page. And even includes words that are not even in the book, such as dragon in the castle. George W. Bush in 2001 decided to invoke an act called the No Child Left Behind Act to counter these problems of reading skills and math skills. I'm going to tell you about why it was invoked in the first place, the general description, about the act, the pros and cons of the act, and the future of the act. When it comes to telling you about what the act is about, I'm going to tell you why the act came in and a general description of it. In 1964, President Lyndon Johnson had invoked the act of the ESEA, also known as the Elementary Secondary Education Act, by Allison G. in 2001, titled Elementary and Secondary Election Act of 1965, and the Act of AECT.org. Hamilton Gosley, 2003, Working Smarter to Leave No Child Left Behind, showed that President George W. Bush had changed the act's name to No Child Left Behind, but with major changes, because now, just like back then, the education now is not as good as it once was. He also invoked the act because, like Johnson, back then, the education of the communities, such as like the black communities during the civil rights movements, that's when everything was starting to initially pick up for the education itself, such as Brown versus Board. By U.S. Department of Education in June 11th of 2008, Map in America of Education Progress on ed.gov, between the years of 04 and 05, there were 49,676,964 students currently in the U.S. alone. Between 05 and 06, there are over 98,905 schools. When it comes to the description of it, the difference between the ESEA and the NCLB are totally different. The ESEA was more meant to upgrade the schools and books, teachers, to be able to allow them to have the supplies that they need. The No Child Left Behind Act is more about these things, such as funding, flexibility, accountability, as well as everything else on here. The school district, such as reports, allows the students to have the report cards sent to the parents. So when the parents ask them, did you do anything in school today? And they say, nothing. Can't really do anything about that because it shows you did something in school. The flexibility, the schools are allowed to use the money for whatever they are wanting to use, such as science, PE, art, anything of the sort. Funding, they only get so much of funding, but they're allowed to be able to use it in a wide amount of what they want to use. When it comes to with the pros and cons, over years of between 3 and 5 grade levels are tested every year in each grade level. Once between 6th grade and 9th grade, and then once between 10th and 12th. You may get tested in high school twice, depending on whether you get tested in 9th and 10th grade alone. So stated as in Journal of Gender and Race and Justice, the opposing viewpoints of Missouri by Green, Olivia, and Brooke. Also pros of it are better self in all subjects, so that when they actually get the sort of test back or anything like that, they're actually able to see what they have to work on, and if there's anything that needs a significant improvement. The students are able to transfer as well. If the schools are not seen as proficient enough for them and are not up to date, they are allowed to transfer to a school in which they are not in that city. Also by the journal, there's also social gaps, such as in 2004, this is a reading and math charts. Though reading has risen between grades and but not between math, such as between the blacks and Mexicans, the math grades have not risen that far. They have stayed actually the same, as though in whites they have actually risen a little bit. Though in reading, they are actually have been rising steadily. So the statistics now are probably more, this is what I could find. The quality of education reduces the class size and allows them to exceed in their test scores, such as blacks their test scores have risen 7 to 10 points with smaller classrooms, and whites have risen from 3 to 4 points within their test alone in smaller classrooms as well. The cons of it is that the money that has been spent is between $1 and $5.3 billion was spent on testing from 2002 to 2008. Though not all of this money was actually spent on just testing. The buildings and repairs of the faculty and the maintenance. So their teachers are getting raises, but also the schools, since they're not up to date in the building codes, they're spending more money on that so that their testing as well may not get the benefits. And funding, L. Holling, United Education, and Social Consequences of No Child Left Behind Act, and opposing viewpoints of which this came from, as well as from Adequate Yearly Progress, which is also known as AYP. AYP is has 37 categories in which students are tested upon. Though the problem of it is that if one class of these 37 classes fail, the whole school is considered a failure, just because one set of class has failed to meet the standards of that year. From the sources of Bradley and No Child Left Behind Act, Truth and Consequences on Teachers and 2 Maths and Channels. And next is the future of the Act. Obama's in 2010's education plan. But reading upon this, I found that actually a lot of the cons have actually started to exceed more of the pros. He wants to, not in exact words, but overall description, scrap the whole act or make major changes. When it turns out that by 2014, Bush's act wanted to have at least 100% rate by that year, that all reading proficiency. This was testimony by Ted Gray, Obama's Unfold Education Blueprints in the U.S. Today. Rosie Talks, Associate Professor in Literacy Studies of School Education at Virginia Tech, has said that testing of the top operates as a smokescreen with serious problems that are unwilling to face. So when she's talking about how we are unable to actually face the problem and deal with it on a ground level. When Obama was talking, he made a comment of making a broader effort in other subjects and kill all deadlines, and even said himself to make us feel the urgency to have ES/EA reauthorized. So therefore, the education plan may not be as it once was, or may have to be. As for that little girl in the beginning of when she could not exactly read, that little girl was me. I had a hard time reading, and turns out all I needed was a little romance in those books to actually get myself interested and learn how to actually read as well as I do now. So I hope I taught you anything as much as I could about the No Child Left Behind Act, and